Started. All right. Welcome to the Flyte's contributors meetup, August 17. And as usual reminders, the meeting is being recorded. It's been also transcribed using Fathom AI, and also it falls under Linux Foundation Code of Conduct. Okay, let's move to the agenda. And if just in case if you don't have it handy, it's here. And you can either add any discussion topic or add yourself to attend this list or both. Good. Today, I don't see anyone joining for the first time. All right, so let's move to the next one. New RFCs. Again, I don't see any new RFC. I just see the
David, can you share your screen?
yeah.
I think we should move some RFCs to either implemented or, yeah.
Let's start from the left-hand side and review the simplified retry behavior. Are we ready to move this to the final comment period and merge in 2 weeks or less? Or do you think it needs more time?
We've had internal discussions about retries and like related to this unification or possibly an alternative. But I think we should work internally to either update this RFC or propose an alternative. I think I'm more inclined to ask the team internally to go with the former, like updating this, clarifying how we're gonna do it. But like it's not clear yet. So also in the RFC itself, there were a few questions that I don't think we ever got to the bottom of. Right, Fabio, especially like that guy. What's his name? Henry?
Dennis, my colleague, or
is it Dennis? It's Dennis, not Henry. Yes. Sorry, I'm just.
no worries.
Yeah, if you scroll to the bottom, David, there were.
Yep.
Like in the RFC itself, there are a few questions that I don't think we really.
Yeah, let me see here. I mean the actual RFC here, the unresolved questions.
No, they were comments in the RFC.
There were a bunch of resolved ones. Maybe we can unresolve them to take a look.
Yeah.
But most of them. So I wrote it. I asked Dennis to comment on it, and I basically adapted most of them. So in the beginning, there were a bunch of open ones, but these were really comments of Dennis to me about what he would change of the RFC, because we initially worked on it together, and then I made the formal RFC and he commented on it. So there were a bunch of questions, but I would say these are really resolved, the ones that are resolved.
Nice. Okay.
That's not to say that there isn't anything that needs to be deeply discussed here. Absolutely feel free to also make changes to this RFC, or let's discuss there. I think it's important to get it right, not to get it super quick.
Cool. I'll get the people at Union to comment on this. Like I know that we've had a few questions that were not really answered by the RFC yet, so it would be great if we could, get to a point where we're not dissatisfied with the retry mechanisms in Flyte, which I think is the intent of this RFC.
Yeah. Dan also had a prototype PR, and we intend to next week or the one after just deploy it in our staging cluster and just try it.
Nice.
So I would say it sounds like let's not move it to the next period. Let's keep it open. We try it. We tried Dan's version in our staging cluster. You have more discussions, and I totally see there are questions being worth asking that we didn't think of. So feel free to, when questions arise in discussions, just put them here, and then we think about what we do with it.
Cool. This is awesome. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, the only ask will be if there is any discussion, be it internal or external, that should be captured here. So anyone has access.
Maybe one last word. Also, feel free to ping us, and we're happy to jump on another call to discuss some things if you want.
Yeah, I'll ping you, okay? Sometime next week.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So the accepted proposals, you mean, right, Eduardo? Moving some of them
Yeah, let's move some of those to.
What about performance benchmarking? What is this?
This is an RFC that Dan worked on for some time.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of ideas there. Some are implemented, some are not. I don't think it will be a huge focus in the short term, but like it's a thing that it's still on our radars, very much so.
Okay. So it's still not fully implemented.
But I mean,
right?
the RFC is done. Like
Well,
it's really like breaking it into smaller items and like getting them implemented. But I think this is it. Like we're not like I don't. I hope I'm not misrepresenting what like Dan's plans here. Like I know that he's not in the call, but there's a lot in this RFC. I don't think we're iterating it much. It's time to get some of those ideas implemented. So it's
okay.
accepted. And
All right. The external plugin service. I think is that one fully
Released,
implemented?
right?
is this? Yeah, this should be using the new name, right? The Flyte agents.
Right. This is Flyte agents.
Yeah, we should rename it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just rename it and move it to.
Yeah. I can rename it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard. Okay. Array nodes.
Yeah, so array nodes shipped feature in 1.9. There's more work described in the RFC that's it's planned. So it's being implemented. Like
Yeah, probably it's in the process. Yes.
yeah, so it's somewhere between completely finished and
Yeah, we don't have a
I think
status for
calling it implemented might not be. We should probably rename implemented
two.
as to like implementation phase or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's better. Let me see if I can do this. And I will add a description to
Cool.
this column. Okay.
This one, it's just an RFC at this point.
Not implemented yet,
Might
right?
be a draft PR, but this is not implemented yet. No.
Okay. Okay, cool. System tags.
Yeah, so that's also an experimental feature that went out with 1.9. So there's more to be done there, but yeah.
Right. And finally, eager mode. I think that one is planned for 1.10. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like in the implementation phase. Like
Okay.
it's also I think we should
Okay.
get it in.
Yeah, probably the first thing is we need to merge this.
Cool.
And
Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. For the ones that probably needs implementation, I was thinking if we can think we don't need to decide right now, but if we want to reason about probably forming a working group, is because the idea with working group is to gather some folks in the community who could help with the implementation phase We want to discuss RFCs. We want to accept RFCs, and we certainly want to implement accepted RFCs. So
yeah, so like for the Flyte agents, like though we can say with a straight face that this is an implementation phase, and there's work being done in the community. Like there's people out
yeah.
there working on agents also
Okay.
already,
Okay.
So yeah,
Right.
I don't think we have an official working group, but this is clearly in the implementation phase. Like we already have a bunch of examples and people out there also already contributing.
Okay. So let's consider and implement. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, so yeah, probably I will reach out to Dan and Katrina, the authors of this proposal, and see what do they think about maybe forming a working group and yeah, how to move this to implementation. Okay, cool. Any other comment around RFCs? Nope. Great, thank you. Yeah, that helps. All right, next one. Working group updates so far in the config overrides. I don't know any recent update you're aware of.
There have been discussions again between Byron and Dan, but I haven't followed up on them yet. So I think from what I saw on a high level, Byron realized that there's one use case that they have that wouldn't be really covered by it with reference launch plans. And there has been some back and forth about how this could be integrated into the idea. But I can't say more about it. I need to like read the thread.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read the Google Doc that came out. It seems like more people from LinkedIn are working on this, from what I understand. And there has been a whole different proposal from there in terms of UX, different to the RFC. There also seems to be pushback both from the union side and potentially from the last meeting, also from the open source side, in terms of what the UX looks like, kind of passing in configuration as parameters into workflows. I think that's something people are somewhat opposed to, but I don't think there has been a final vote yet. I'm personally not too much of a fan of the with hook syntax, but so I think this needs some more discussion. I'm not sure how involved the two of us are still. Fabio, maybe we should get back in the loop there.
Yes.
Yeah, you captured it well. Like there was a meeting with LinkedIn where they basically talked about the failure in the current idea expressed in the RFC. You mentioned this Google Doc, which is where like the latest thought about the alternative that Byron and the team is proposing. I think we reached a point where the alternative solves their use case. It's not really. It doesn't look like. Sorry, what I'm trying to say is, I think we should work with Byron to get the like this newest idea like ported to the RFC, so that we can let the community at large know how config overrides are going to work. Yeah, this is all very recent. Like I think they were like there was a lot of conversation to like get to a point where the implementation would solve their use case and it would not break like some of the assumptions that Flyte has. I don't know if he wants to jump in on this and maybe add more color to this thing. If you're not in the call, it's all right. I think we should
I don't have too much more color to add. So what happened was they had one esoteric use case that made the hook idea UX wise, less appealing. So he kind of reverted back to the original plan of adding something to the inputs, but somehow magically would not affect the interface. We didn't like that, so Kathan came up with the idea of moving the overrides into like a workflow level context object declared in the decorator of the workflow. That would then get resolved basically by Propeller at execution time and passed down. I believe the structure of the override object is a subset of the fields of the task template, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it would
that's
be
where we
like a
landed.
smart merge. So last I heard, I just pinged Byron to ask if he wanted to come on. I don't know if that idea has been vetted by them to see if it's workable. But I think, yeah, once they're happy with it, if they are happy with it, let's get them back on to explain like a implementation plan.
Yeah, I need to read the document here. I'll do that.
Yeah, we
Then I'll comment.
should.
Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Right. Okay. Next up, ideas in the incubator. I saw new one from Katrina. I don't see her here, but it's basically the proposal to not only say the create execution request parameters, but also really resolve the actual resolve execution time parameters in the database. Feel free to comment. Again, remember that anything that you post here is kind of an open question. Is this idea a good fit for an RFC or not? And yeah, feel free to leave your comments there. That's appreciated. Anything you want to discuss about this one right here? No.
My gut feeling is that regardless of how valid or invalid that proposal is, I don't think it needs an RFC, right? It's a small thing to save in the database. It's not changing any behavior that's user facing.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to leave your feedback there. Yeah, in general, kind of the RFC is for features that will change the user experience in a significant way. Not sure if this one fits, but
I think the background on this one was we noticed some tasks or some workflows were being reported as still running after like days and days, that like they had kind of we weren't resolving the fact that they had completed. And so I think this is like the Flyte change that's required to avoid situations like that. I can dig in more and figure it out, but I think that was the context. So in terms of like the user experience, that's where this could potentially touch the user. But it seems like it's like a monotonic improvement in experience that your workflow that is actually stopped is now showing you that it's stopped. So maybe not agreeing with that. Maybe this is not quite a huge RFC.
Sounds like a bug fix.
got it. Right. Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you, John, for the context. That sounds good. Okay, next one, the open mic section. First one, monorepo. I added this to the agenda, but I heard that you planted to.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Let's talk about it. So I've been working on this change to basically make the dev experience of of the Flyte related repos easier by pulling them into a monorepo essentially. I have it working in a fork. As you can expect, it's like a several step process. Like we really the idea is to have have a contribution guide that it is simplified in case you want to make these cross component changes. Really, like the way we we make these changes today is really like non-optimal. Like there's no clear way to even like, how do you make a change to IDL and test it like in admin and propeller in a single in a way. So by moving to a monorepo, this will be trivial, really. Like as part of the PR cycle, you get like a single binary thing that you can deploy. Yeah, I don't know, like nothing changes in terms of like how people usually contribute to the poly repo case. Like if you have a change in propeller, nothing's gonna change besides you popping into the Flyte propeller directory under now the Flyte repo and doing what you're doing today. Similar, to all the Golang repos, like these will all work the same way. These will happen in phases. The phase 1, we're going to import only the Golang repos. So propeller, admin, data catalog, all the auxiliary repos that we have, like plugins, stdlib. Then we're going to import, Flyte IDL, console, and only in the phase 3, even Flyte kit and Flyte snacks where we store the examples. They're all going to live there. This will simplify documentation also. And it's not a crazy amount of code. Like as I said, I have this thing working on my fork. Like we have about 6,000 commits overall across all repos. So like checkout times will not be affected hugely, and this will open up this the ability for us to have a much more streamlined like dev experience. Yeah, if you guys are interested, I can publish the notes that I've been using to guide this project. It doesn't quite fit the RFC model. It's more of a almost the implementation guide of what are my plans, because like I had a few requirements there. For example, I didn't want to lose the commit history of each project. So like figuring out how to do that properly was in itself a small project, but I figured out the right way. Once this first wave of imports happen, we're gonna have like a freeze period of, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, where PRs that are currently open will be moved to the Flyte repo, and we're gonna prevent new PRs from being open in each respective repo. And then we mark the repos as read only, pointing them to the Flyte repo. So TLDR, for people who are contributing right now for in each of the backend components, like there will be a slight change in that instead of checking out each component separately, you're just gonna go to the Flyte repo. But all the tooling remains the same. We're still gonna have like the same make files, all the tests, like nothing really changes in the dev experience. It's more like the goal really is to have in having a PR cycle like this streamlined DevX, where you get like a single binary running your tests. And as I said, there are some improvements that we're planning to leverage the move to the monorepo to make the DevX overall better. But I just wanted to let you all know that like we're moving to a monorepo. Nothing changes. Expect that, yeah, this is going to happen in the coming weeks. Any comments? Is anyone unhappy with their respective monorepos, or they have something to share, or I don't know, maybe?
Can you talk
I
about?
think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
When is the Go mod file going to move?
Yeah.
Related,
So
sorry.
what you're at, just to explain, like we are gonna have a multi-module repo to start with. So in the first import, like the first phase of this project, we're still going to have separate Go mod files, one per component. There are a few advantages to having a single Go mod file, but we're not doing this in this first import. Does that answer your question? So like it'll be like either after we import, no, it'll be definitely after we import all the Golang repos, then we can start thinking about how to this work to, you know, really unify the Go mod files. I try to make this in my repo with for, you know, just the main ones like data catalog, Flyte plugins, propeller, and admin, and Flyte CTL, and like I found a few incompatibilities, so I said no, let's import the code first, then separately, once we have, you know, the release process figured out, like we get people used to like how you do things, which again, nothing's gonna change. You're still gonna make, you know, a single PR in the respective component directory using all the tooling that you already used to, like pop to directory to go test, to run your tests and whatnot. Sorry, TLDR is not happening when we import the code. It will happen later. It's. Does this answer your question, E?
Yeah.
Bernardo, you had a question.
Yeah, mostly wanted to. I think this is great from a contributor's perspective. I definitely felt the struggle of touching 6 things at the same time. So I think it lowers the entry barrier for people to actually contribute. For example, contributing docs in the same PR that you do. The rest is quite nice. Yeah. I've migrated from monorepo there and back a few times throughout my career. From experience, neither way is easy, and usually there are hidden traps everywhere. But appreciating, I think for this project it makes sense.
Yeah, that's where I was going with, like, for this project, like given the amount of contributions, like how we think about releases, and even like the interdependencies of like the components that exist today, I think it's the right call, and that's why we're doing it.
Any other question, comment? Yep, go ahead.
Maybe an add-on to this. Will there be one of the struggles, for example, that I faced contributing, and it's one of the things that's currently blocking a PR with the Dask plugin. Will there be end-to-end tests? Because sometimes I feel like that, like I don't want to release my PR before fully testing it, and there isn't a nice place at the moment where these full end-to-end tests could live. So I could see this being easier with the monorepo.
Yeah, you're hitting the right note. Like we've been waiting for the move to the monorepo to get, you know, an easy way to have end-to-end tests that, I mean, they don't really exist today, but just very cumbersome. So moving to the monorepo will allow for this naturally to happen, and it's in our plans also.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. All right, if no other question or comment, we'll move to the next item. The GCP identity aware proxy from Fabian. I'm excited about this one.
Can you open the issue,
Yep.
please? The first planned to make an RFC, but basically I had to build it to make sure it works, and now it's built. And I think we can do a PR review and discuss whether this is something that you want upstreamed. So let me quickly give context of why we need it, and I think other people need it too. So GCP Identity Aware Proxy is it's a service that allows you to have like a gatekeeper at the load balancer level that doesn't let any requests pass unless they are authenticated with Google identities. And It's pretty easy to configure for applications deployed on GKE. You create a secret in the namespace where there's the ingress. And then you have a small manifest called the backend config that just says, hey, I want to have IAP for this backend. And then you have an annotation on the service that says, use this backend config. And then you have a zero trust model for that deployed service where no request can hit it without being authenticated with Google. And because it's so easy to enforce the zero trust model, many organizations basically require it for internal tooling. So at my current organization, my previous one, and also others that I've seen on Slack, people cannot deploy tools without identity-aware proxy because it's so easy to basically not worry about things. With that, I'm not saying that I think that I believe the authentication mechanism in Flyte is not great. From what I can judge, it looks very solid. But the difference is that when you deploy Flyte with its own authentication, an unauthenticated request hits Flyte, and then it's redirected to login, but it means that the unauthenticated requests, they do reach the backend. And with GCP identity-aware proxy, then they never do. They're already blocked at the load balancer level. And that makes the security team sleep well. And that's why they just say, does it use identity-aware proxy? No, it doesn't. Well, you can't use it. And workarounds typically are that people that I have seen or I've implemented or other people here talk about in Slack are that they deploy identity-aware proxy at the load balancer level, deploy Flyte behind it without authentication, and then either port forward Flyte admin or use a VPN to talk to Flyte admin or make the cluster VPC native and then talk to Flyte admin from VMs in the VPC. But they don't talk to Flyte admin from their notebooks, basically, because they can't get past the identity-aware proxy. And yeah, that works, but it's not great. And what comes with that is that we're also not aware of who a workflow belongs to. You can't click on only my executions, right? We want Flyte to be able to know who the user is, and we also want to be able to use it just from a notebook. So we looked at what it takes to make it to integrate Flyte with identity-aware proxy, and deploy it also with the GCE ingress, which wasn't super simple. You can't use the Nginx ingress for that. It has to be the Google one. And the Google one doesn't understand gRPC health checks and readiness probes. It requires encryption between the load balancer and the backend because it uses HTTP2, which on Google requires TLS. But we do have it working now in a sandbox. And I opened already, I think, 3 PRs. There will be like 1 or 2 more to basically make this work. And the idea is that there will be created one plugin which provides an external command which generates ID tokens for identity-aware proxy so that you can authenticate. And then the way I propose to do it is that the users can configure in their platform config that they want to send proxy authorization headers that will be to basically generate the ID token for this proxy authorization header. We run this plugin, this external command, and then the requests they make it through the identity-aware proxy, and then FlyteKit does its own normal authentication flow with Flyte admin. And the PR that is missing is how to actually deploy it. Needs a few changes to the Helm chart. Or not changes, it needs basically custom annotations and some other objects that need to be created in the cluster. Yeah, any questions about it?
How about this this encryption between the proxy and admin? Like, how did you solve this?
Actually, Flyte admin can do that. So you can create, so that the load balancer will not check the certificate authority. It can be self-signed certificate. And you can create one. We create it with Terraform to save it as a secret in the cluster. And the Helm chart already has a way to mount additional secrets into Flyte admin, and Flyte admin can already load TLS certificate and open an HTTPS server. So it can already do that. I think there's still a bug in Flyte scheduler that it can't talk to Flyte admin then, but I'll fix that. And
Got it.
Luckily, it already can. There's one bug that took me like a day to figure out because when Flyte admin uses TLS, it starts a single server on port 80, not one on port 80 and one on port 81. Helm chart doesn't account for that. And there's also PR to fix that one. But the answer is Flyte admin can already do it, luckily. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Do you have to worry about rotating this cert? Like, how is this going to work with admin? I know this is already supported, but
so what we will do, I guess, is let's say it like this. This communication happens between the load balancer and the back end, and typically this is not encrypted at all, right? The reason why we encrypt it is because Google needs us to encrypt it, but I'm not worried that much about the security aspect there. I encrypt it because I have to, otherwise it doesn't work. So we'll use a very long running certificate. We'll basically use one.
I'm just thinking, the case of like when they expire, or they, for whatever reason, they have to be rotated. You know, how are you gonna do it
So
in a way that doesn't cause unavailability? Like,
yeah,
we don't have to discuss this now.
But then okay, we will do it with the Terraform provider or with the Terraform resource that generates self-signed TLS certificates. And built in is that if you regularly Terraform apply, then it will realize that when the end of life for the certificate is approaching, that it needs to be rotated, and we'll do it for you. You still need to restart admin, I guess. You don't have to use a self-signed one. You can, right? You can, at least in the way that I will document how to deploy it, that's how I'll describe it. But I think if there's a better way, you can change that. It doesn't have to be a self-signed one. I wouldn't know how to get the managed one, to be honest, between the load balancer and the backend. But if it can be done, then most certainly that we can also do that, I guess.
Cool. That's nice. Do you know if there's an equivalent for AWS?
I don't know, to be honest, but I was chatting with Matthew, I forgot the last name. He's from Freenome, I think, because they're also super interested in getting this to work. I'm not sure if you saw the messages on Slack, but they will basically try to replicate it and just try it, because they really need this too. And he was mentioning that that there was a service on AWS too, a similar one like that. Maybe there's one more thing that we could discuss. Can you scroll down a little bit? There are two ways that one could integrate identity-aware proxy. No, there's another message. Like below this one, there's another long message. Scroll more down, please. There's another one. Yeah. So that's what I was discussing with Matthew when he mentioned that there's a similar service on AWS. There are two ways that one could identity-aware proxy, and here I'm making the case why I chose the one that I chose. So you can integrate it on the client side by sending proxy authorization headers, which basically just say, hey, I need to go through this proxy, but then I'll do the normal authentication flow with the actual app. Or you can send authorization headers, and then GCP identity-aware proxy will validate the authorization header, strip it, and replace it with this xgoog IAP JWT assertion header here. It's not the same header that is currently used by Flyte with to integrate with Google identities. And I tried to integrate it in Flyte admin, and there is a very ugly chicken egg problem that to verify the audience, you need to start a service. But when you start the service, you get the so-called backend service ID, but you need that one to validate the audience. So you have this chicken egg problem where you need to start it, figure out the backend service ID, inject it via an environment variable, restart it before you can fully validate the token. I found that rather horrible. And I was also thinking that if we have a special case for the special managed Google service for tokens, well, we might have the same one for Azure, for AWS, in case they have similar services, and then we'll have a bunch of different token handling logic and admin that all come with their dependency to validate these tokens. Whereas the other one is basically a general solution that if you have a proxy in front of Flyte admin, and run an external command to generate a token to authenticate with the proxy, and then you do the normal authentication and authorization with Flyte itself. Because of these reasons, I chose to implement it on the client side now, because I think it's easier to both is not easy to deploy, but I felt it's the more general solution that doesn't have a special handling for one special managed service in Flyte admin. Doesn't mean that it has to always stay this way. I felt it was the easier first step. If somebody really needs the deeper integration with it in Flyte admin, that I guess that can also be done in the future. The price that one pays for it is that one logs in twice, right? You log in once with the identity by proxy. It's very similar to the Pixie, to the user experience that you get when you do the Pixie flow with Flyte. It's not Pixie, it's a standard OS2 flow, but the browser window quickly opens to with the redirect server. Also reuse the logic that Flyte has for that. And then there's a second browser window opening for Flyte itself. Now, these very rarely open at the same time because they don't have the same lifespan, these tokens. So sometimes you will see a browser window opening, and it is to do the OAuth2 flow with Google Identity by Proxy, and then another time a browser window will open to do the Pixie flow with Flyte. That is the price that we pay for that. For us, that's a price very much worth paying, we would say, because currently we can't authenticate with Flyte from our notebooks. We need to be in the VPC, and there we're anonymous to Flyte. So we'll absolutely take this the small downside here. But I guess this text here is important because it basically outlines why I chose to do it this way. Yeah, that was a lot about tokens, so feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, I think Bernard had a question.
No, I think that resolves itself by scrolling down. I saw that, yeah, there's a proxy command similar to SSH or kubectl or any other tool, right, where you can tell it what command to use to authenticate, from what I saw. But it was only skimmed over.
Say again, I didn't understand, sorry.
So in the config for Flyte, there is you don't have to paste the header, right? But you paste the command that should be run to generate the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I basically do the currently one can already authenticate with an external command in Flyte, right? And I extended that idea to say, okay, you can do that, but you can also run a second command if you want, if you have a proxy in front of it, to generate a token for that. And I opened a PR for a plugin that provides a CLI called Flyte IAP, generate user token or generate service account token. And you can just basically use this plugin and put it into your config file. It will run this command and get a token for you.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's nice. Like, why do we need like an extra CLI? Like, don't we already have that? Oh, because you're hitting like a separate endpoint. Sorry, forget about it.
You mean because you already have the Pixie flow in FlyteKit, or
in like a way to run like a custom like auth command, right? But in this case, like you need two. Like,
I need two.
Yes,
I need another one.
Yep.
Yeah. And what I like about doing it this way is that when somebody else has another type of proxy in front of Flyte, be it another managed service or some on-premise deployment where they have a proxy in front of it, they can use the same exact mechanism. They just need to provide their own command to generate a token, and it will work for them too. So I think that's also cool. That if there is such a service on AWS, I don't know if there is, but I guess the mechanism will work just as well. You just need another command.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But I'm clearly not competent enough to review this and think about the implications. So who can?
Yeah, there's still some tests that I need to fix, but yeah, I'll need somebody from Unitside to look over this. I'm not modifying Flyte's authentication, like I'm not modifying the way Flyte like the Flyte CLI is authenticated with the backend. I'm just adding a second header basically, so I'm not modifying any of the flows. I slightly refactor this authorization client that is in FlyteKit and the Pixie authenticator because I want to reuse the code for the OAuth2 flow. But there's no change in behavior in that. The behavior is absolutely untouched. Apart from.
Did you also make a change in Flyte CTL, Fabio? Or
not yet, but there's a to-do item here in the issue that needs to be done.
Nice. Yeah, in terms of like who can help you get this to the finish line, like I know David, you did a deep dive into off in Flyte, but I know also Haytham is going to be back next week, and he really is the off expert, so we'll probably loop him in this feature specifically. Okay, too.
I think we can wait until the guys from Freenome tried it, because they already, while I was on holiday, were super eager to get their hands on it. I didn't have my work computer, so I really couldn't push it. But they really, I was writing with Matthew last night, again, I don't know. But they already allocated time, I think next week or so, to also get the sandbox deployment with this. And probably they will discover some rough edges that still need polishing. And maybe then once that is done, it's time to review.
Yeah, that was probably my question. What do you need? What help do you need? Because this looks like an important effort. Thank you so much. And I can think of at least one additional or an additional user who wants to see this and who could help testing. I had a call this week with folks from ADT, and they are also GCP users, and of course they would like to see this happening. Very open to help. So probably, I don't know, probably gathering everyone together in at least a Slack channel, probably a working group is what we need here. But if you need someone to test out something, contribute in some ways, I can definitely reach out and gather everyone. That would be awesome.
I'll ping you on Slack.
Cool.
That's pretty awesome, Fabio. Thank you.
I learned a lot about hidden stuff in Google documentation. They say in a very small side sentence that you need TLS between the load balancer and the backend. And they have a demo app that they deploy where that's kind of, without telling, they create a secret at startup. So you never know that there is a TLS certificate that's being generated and you really need it. And the error message just, they really don't tell you that that's what you need.
Fun.
That's great. Thanks so much. Right. Any other question, comment? All right. Well, it seems like that's it in terms of agenda. So if another comment, question, etc., that's it for today. Yeah, thank you, Chief. We can also test. Awesome. All right. Thanks everyone for joining, and hope to see you next one. Bye.
Bye.